I became known as that channel that does you're dating. I made a lot of mistakes along the way doing this.
Today I'm talking with Marina, founder of the popular YouTube channel Dating Beyond Borders. In this raw and honest conversation, Marina shares her journey from high school teacher in Canada to creating a successful and truly unique YouTube channel. Alongside expert advice on how to build, grow and monetize your YouTube and social media, Marina also reveals the personal challenges of being a full-time content creator and digital nomad. So if you're curious what it really takes to build a successful YouTube business, this episode's for you. I'm Jonathan Ramhoy, your insider to building a business and a life beyond borders. Let's begin.
So I've been doing this for 11 years now. Okay. It started with a blog, and I was working in Panama in Latin America, and I had this idea. I wanted to go around and ask men from different countries the same 5 questions and see how the answers would differ. And I approached my friend. She said, okay, let's do this. She thought it was going to be like a fun little project. This was 10 years ago. We didn't have phones. We had cameras, and we went around. It was horrible. We had no audio, nothing. And we did this interview, and I remember it was just a terrible video. I really thought it was just the worst. But then at this moment, it felt like something amazing, you know? I went back to edit that video when I came back to Canada, and I thought, I really there's nothing else I want to be doing than creating content. It was the first moment in my life where I thought, this is like when you fall in love.
Now you have a community of 1 million. Mm-hmm. That's very impressive. Can you kind of lay out the journey? How did you get to 1 million?
Yeah, so after I published this video, I was still working as a teacher back in Canada. So I would come in and work, and I would use my lunches, and I would just go online, and I dreamed really hard that this would be my full-time job, but I didn't know how to make it happen because I kind of understood that I wanted to focus on dating around the world, but I didn't know the format I was doing. YouTube was a very different place back then, right? You didn't really have a lot of videos of this type. So I really struggled for the first, there were a couple of years where I still had my job as a teacher.
So not many reference points, basically.
No, I had nobody.
You were pioneering it, sort of.
Kind of, yes. And going back now in hindsight, I wish I did a lot of things differently. But I didn't know what I was doing. I kind of was playing a lot on the stereotypes, and I just thought, oh, it'd be funny to show people what I know about all these different cultures. But I didn't know a lot at the time. I was starting out with the stereotypes that I knew, you know? Mm-hmm. So so I had this video. I tried creating content, but it was all over the place. Mm-hmm. I would be making really terrible videos I tried making documentaries. I didn't know. I was in between, I want to be a Vice reporter to making, it was not good, you know? I didn't know what I was doing. So this was a couple of years.
Trying out different formats, basically.
I tried out different formats. Nothing landed. Someone told me, get off of YouTube. Your content is really bad. I remember this. I went to Argentina. I remember, and I was there for 3 months, and I shot some videos, but most of them, I'm pretty embarrassed. I did one about couch surfing. I did a couch surfing documentary. So the thing is, I didn't really know what my thing was, which kind of brings me back to one of the lessons that I can share with you later on. And so,
That's how you have to start, right? You have to just try a bunch of different things.
You do. But if you want to save time and you want to grow faster, mm-hmm. I would suggest actually sitting down and researching exactly who's doing what you're doing and what works for them.
That's a great tip.
Because otherwise, creating your niche is really wonderful. I'm still the only one in my niche. I don't think anybody else, and I know actually no one else is doing this specific format. So it's still I would say it's still pretty hard, but mm-hmm. you kind of have to know what's happening. You have to research your niche really well, so that you're not just going into it being I'm just going to shoot a bunch of content.
So that's your advice for new creators, basically. Research your niche, and see what other creators are doing.
Yes.
And kind of replicate, copy.
So I would say first thing is really get clear on what your niche is going to be, right? It's really easy to say I'm a lifestyle DIY because everybody's doing it and you think it's easy money, but you have stiff competition out there. You have to research really well what others are doing, and then you have to do something different because there's just too much noise out there. You know this really well, right? There's just too much noise, never like before, like it's getting really, really bad. So what can you do that's a little bit different? What formats are people doing? And which format are you the most comfortable with? Because I strongly suggest sticking to one format. This is probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned along the way.
Double down on one format, basically.
Double down on one format.
Can you elaborate what a format is?
Yes. So, and I'll give you my own personal example actually from my journey, because I made a lot of mistakes along the way doing this. So when I started, I kind of, like I said, like I was all over the place with what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. So people weren't really clear on what the hell is this channel, right? And so then I went around Europe and I did a few like on the street interviews, which, okay, this was my format. Then I changed my format completely and I began filming studio videos. So I was like, no, I actually don't want to be in my videos at all. I want to be a brand. So I'm going to do reaction videos, you know, those videos where you have people in the studio. And so I had videographers, I had editors, I had a makeup person at one point, which is, by the way, mistake number 2. I can talk about it later. And so we were doing studio videos. Because the topic was dating, I didn't really want my face there that much because I didn't want people to talk about me and to kind of say, oh, she's, you know, who is she dating? Or I wanted to keep it completely separate. So I'd say like the format is essentially, this is a format, this is a sit down format where the two people are talking. You can be incredibly successful if you keep up the same format. You have really interesting people. You have some of the same questions. It's simplicity over difficulty. You know, let's say you always ask your guests the same question, you know, and you get different responses. So that's a format. What I do on Instagram right now is a format where I interview people around the world. Some people take it a step further and they'll ask the same question. How much money does it cost to live in New York City? How much money does it cost to live in Monaco? And so they have not only the same interview style format, they also have the same kind of questions. It may seem like it's boring, but it works because people know exactly what they're expecting from you. They follow you because they're getting that content and they get that content delivered to them. They're not surprised. And a format can be in a studio type format, skit forms, that's format. So there's
People
different
like
ones.
repetition, they like familiarity.
Yes.
And knowing what to expect, basically.
I think, yes, definitely. It's been proven. And actually, I did a YouTube course. We had a YouTube studio back in Toronto, and we did a course. And one of the lessons was do the same consistent format, but just change the environment. So change, let's say, you always have people in the studio, but today you have people from South America, tomorrow you have people from Germany, tomorrow you have people from this. This format works. People know exactly what they're getting. For me personally, I really struggle with that because I feel like I'm getting bored myself. And that's where a lot of the problems for people come in. Like, at some point you're gonna hate that and you're going to want to do something else. There's something they say like the 80-20 rule, like 80% of the time do what works best, double down on the content that performs the most, 20% of the time experiment, because algorithms change, trends change. You know, I used to have this series called You Know You're Dating, and that was, I did one about a Swedish man. We had 2 actors. So let's say it would be an American girl dating a Swedish man, and we would show all the situations of them going on, like they would meet, like he would get drunk in a bar and then start hitting on her. And then they would go for like a date, and then he would bring his toothbrush to her house, assuming he was gonna sleep over. Like all these like little funny, he would like write a passive aggressive note to the neighbors because he didn't want to complain. So you have all these like scenarios. People loved that so much. That's how my channel grew, is because I had You Know You're Dating. And the reason they liked it, number one, consistency. You could fill in the blanks. You know you're dating a Swedish man, you're dating an Icelandic woman, you know you're dating a German woman.
Right.
So people knew what to request. Okay, I want to see Finnish man next, you know?
They knew the format and...
They knew the format.
Yeah.
Exactly. I became known as that channel that does You Know You're Dating. Like I was...
Right. That's your most popular videos, right? I think they have like 6-7 million views.
Exactly. Like that people loved it because it was entertaining. It showed them like an insight on the culture in a really fun way. but also they knew exactly what to ask me for, and they felt like they were a part of it. Like if they asked me for a Colombian woman and I did that, they'd be really happy. Okay, you listened to me and I feel represented. That's the other thing. People want to feel represented, so they feel really like a part of the community, that it was relatable. So that worked incredibly well in terms of the format. That was my most winning format. But what happens when that stops performing? Because algorithm changed. Skit format died on YouTube. So it's basically when you're acting out a situation, that's a skit. You see it a lot on Instagram where people will act out in different roles. So that format is no longer doing well on YouTube.
Really?
Everybody stopped creating that format.
So you took it as far as you could before the algorithm changed, basically, or?
Essentially, yeah,
How?
but I was, I was getting kind of tired of it because, and that's my actually another advice is choose the format you can commit to and not break your pocket while you're doing that, because it wasn't sustainable. I couldn't continue doing it. We were putting in 6 to 8 hour work days filming. I needed a videographer. I needed an editor for that. They were incredibly costly episodes. I would spend on some at least $1,000 for an episode, and I wasn't making the money to keep that going. So I kind of burned myself out. I overinvested. I overpaid. And so
Interesting, but it paid off then in a way because they became so popular.
Yeah, no, I'm probably still getting a lot of the chunk of the money that I get through AdSense is through those videos, and I'm happy I did them. But I probably could have gotten the same amount of money with creating easier episodes. I don't regret doing it, but it was a lot of work and it was a lot of money that I invested in those episodes.
How would you have done them more easly?
Oh yeah, I definitely. Well, if I wanted to do those kind of episodes, I could have just, we put in a lot of work visually. We had to have different shots, different angles. It's like The Office. If you watch The Office, it's very handheld. Like we could have done it. We could have filmed it more simply. I didn't have to. I would go out and buy props and pay all the actors, which you have to do. But I wouldn't go near anywhere the same length in terms of actually making it look perfect.
More DIY.
Exactly. Like I could have made it less. Some people did the same thing and they did it a lot less polished. So I wouldn't mind like a little movie, which I'm really happy with it. Like it gave me something that I really learned from that. And I did it in many different locations as well. So I learned to work with different people on the road, different videographers around the world. But overall, it's too much work. And I did it like really early on. So I would always suggest start small, kind of work more on the value as opposed to making everything super polished, because the polishing can come later. The value is what you need to start with. I think you need to start with the question, like, what am I doing and why am I doing this? What value am I giving to the people through this? Is it educational? Is it ASMR? Is it entertainment? Like, you need to be specific about the value that you're giving to people. And then I can talk about that as well.
Were you not clear about what value you were bringing your audience initially, or when did you like figure this out, map it out?
I think the value changed for me because I started with dating around the world and that was my premise. But then I realized I can't keep doing just dating around the world, so it was like more cultures. I always wanted people to learn something about cultures. And I think I've been doing that for 10 years is how I've been, doing that. So yeah, no, I think the value was still there, but there was a point, and this was after I told you, like, so let's say I've been doing this already 7 years, and this was a few years ago, that the skit format wasn't performing, and I also had the studio videos, but another Korean YouTube channel started basically copying my ideas. There's nothing you can do, and they were working twice as hard. They had a big team, and they were essentially stealing all my concepts and doing it at twice the rate. So I couldn't match that. Like I couldn't, I was so upset, I was crying. I was like...
Twice the rate? Meaning...
Yeah, they were posting every single day.
Okay.
I couldn't keep that up. I couldn't do more than a week. It was just me and like barely a team. And so I was like, I can't compete with these guys. They're posting every single day. They're called World Friends, something, they're still doing the same format. Like they were very smart. They were like, they chose the same format and they doubled down like every single day.
And it works.
And it worked wonders for them. They don't have any community. They don't have any personal element, but they're just making money. They're in it to make money. And I think looks like they're doing pretty well. So then at this point, I thought to myself, okay, what am I gonna do? Because all my content is built around skit format and studio videos. That's the format that I had. And I had a few travel videos.
What time was this?
This was, I want to say 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So like my videographer at the time, he said, you should try challenge videos because challenge videos perform really well. Blindly, I went along with it because I thought, okay, they're performing well. That must mean it's going to perform well for me. But there was not really any value as I was offering. I was just doing it because it was working well and I needed to get the views. So I did a bunch of challenge videos. And
what's an example of a challenge video?
So for example, we put, like they were fun videos. We put people in a line. Let's say we do one, the most sexually open country in the world. We put people, we have Brazil, we have Sweden, we have France, the video actually was really, really great because we talked about the differences in how it's perceived and it's very different. And so then they're supposed to go from least to most. This is the least sexually and this is the most sexually open. Those videos were kind of fun. I don't regret doing them because we had so many different cultures. But it didn't, in the end, I was kind of like, I don't know, I wasn't really feeling it. And it felt like I was copying someone else's idea. It didn't feel like it was my own. And someone said, oh, Marina's becoming like the X channel, like she's copying someone else. They realized it as well. So I sat down and I thought, okay, I need to change it completely. And I also, to be honest, I was spending more than, at some point I was earning, like I was breaking even. Wasn't really smart business-wise. So I thought, number one, I need to save money. Number two, I want to still keep up the value. And my value is I want people to understand how people are around the world when it comes to connection. At this point, it was connection. It wasn't dating. It was mostly like people, like how people relate to each other, relationships, also dating. And I want to do it on location because I don't want to ask a Polish person who left 10 years ago what it's like in Poland. Because everything I was filming, a lot of it was in Toronto. So I took my camera, I taught myself how to film, and I went for 2 months. I went around Europe, just me with a camera, essentially. Like I just asked for help wherever I needed it. When I was in Sweden, I was completely on my own with a camera. I would approach people and ask for interviews because the value for me, and I was super excited because the value for me was like going to a place and understanding how people are in that location. So
you did a big pivot.
Completely.
Of the channel.
Completely.
So you kind of made the whole DBB leaner. You cut out the team and just went solo.
Yeah, I did what I wouldn't suggest doing to people, but I think that's...
How big was your team at the time?
So I always had a videographer, and I travel with him sometimes. So one of my most performing videos, it's about Iceland, and he came with me, and we did crazy trips. We would go and we would film a week nonstop. And then we would edit it, and so I had a videographer. He was also the editor for me, but then at some point I hired another editor, and so I had an editor and a videographer. So that was the team, and I, let's say, had assistants. But like sometimes I would have them, sometimes I didn't have them. And in the end, I was paying even the editor in Ukraine. I was paying at least $1,000 a month, plus the videographer. I was paying about, I want to say, over $1,000 a month. So imagine you're earning money, but you're basically spending so much of that money. I would urge people not to do what I did because it was not smart. I also had to book out studios, which I had to do because a lot of my videos were set in studios. Even when I lived in Lisbon, I found a studio in Cascais and I had to pay for that because in my mind I had this, it has to be in a studio. I regret missing so many opportunities. I could have just interviewed people on the street.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, why did I have to have a studio? I could have just literally just interviewed people.
It was overkill.
It was overkill. Like I was making this up in my mind. It's like, it's like someone lives in their like weird bubble, and then you realize it after, like, why was I making it so hard for myself? Like, I wanted to keep this clean image of what my channel was, and everything I was doing needed to be perfect. And this is the thing, like, people don't need perfection. People actually hate perfection. People want to see more of personality and authenticity and relatability, and non-polished stuff actually performs better. It's not Netflix. Nobody wants to see Meghan Markle cooking.
Exactly.
Like, people want to see real stuff. And But then my biggest mistake is also was, okay, Dating Beyond Borders is a brand. Because it's dating, I don't want to be a part of it. No, like, I would strongly consider people to be a part of their brand, but don't sell your soul. Like, I'm never gonna go on and say, oh my God, guys, I went on this date. No, because no, I don't owe this to my audience. I don't owe to tell them everything about my personal life. You can still keep it separate, but have a part of yourself in it. I wish I did that, honestly. Like,
can you clarify a little bit on that? Like
selling your soul?
Selling your soul,
yeah.
Building a brand, being authentic.
So there's an Instagram page I follow by this girl who goes on dates. And great strategy right now. I mean, short-term strategy is wonderful. People love this. It's like a car crash. Everybody wants to get in on that, even me. Like, oh, what happened? You know, did you go on a date? But this girl also wants to have a life outside of the app, and she has a huge app. So of course, all the guys that she goes on dates with can see this information. People feel entitled to comment on her life. People feel entitled to tell her when she's not wearing a bra. People feel entitled to basically comment. And you can already see a breakdown waiting to happen with this girl, because you cannot let people, this many strangers, into your life and keep going. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to be authentic in a way that...
So she's oversharing.
She's oversharing so much, and to be honest, I don't know what the value is. The value is you are a product. This is great if I want to sell stuff, but long-term goal, I don't want to be a product. I want to be an expert, me personally. And I think it's a smarter way to be than selling yourself as a product, because guess what? This girl is going to have a family someday. Is she still going to be going on dates? No. Is she now going? Are people now going to be following her because she's an online persona? Maybe, but for me personally, and for you, I think it's the same. I mean, you don't want to be the person, you don't want to be just a persona. You want to offer some value to people. So it's great if you want to do sponsorships. Of course, sponsors want to work with people who are personas, you know?
Otherwise you become some clown.
Exactly. That's it. You're selling your soul. You're crying on, you know, you've seen TikToks where people cry on camera. People share too much on camera. It's almost become like you get a gold prize if you share everything about your health and your...
So have you found a good balance there, would you say, personally? Like you're staying quite private and just building, more focusing on building a brand and being an expert?
Yes.
You would say.
So what I'm now doing is I offer people kind of the view of what other people around the world think, but also I'm offering my own like researched point of view. Sometimes I do share personal stories. I will say, you know, I have dated, usually on a podcast because it's a longer format. I will share some stories here and there, but I make it, like, I like to offer my expertise because down the road I want to be a public speaker. Sure. So I want people to book me, and it's like she knows about cultures. It's not that just she's interviewing people, but she's learned something in the 10 years, because I've learned so much. But I'm not limiting it to my own personal.
If you would define it, what would be your expertise? Like
cultural, like anything cultural related, like communication styles, obviously the way people date around the world, the way they approach commitments, the way they approach privacy, the way they approach social norms. You know this better than me, maybe equally so, about the Scandinavian way of life. It's definitely more apparent in some countries versus other countries. Again, the reason I focus on Scandinavia is because Scandinavia is such a homogeneous country. Like, people act within the realms of what you're supposed to kind of do.
Yeah, tell me about it. But you really, you're a genius, a master now at cultural observation, I would say. Like, is this something that's been natural for you, or is it something you have trained? Maybe a combination, right?
I think that's a great question. I actually don't know. I came to Canada when I was 12, so I always felt like a bit of an outsider. I'm not very Canadian, but I'm also not very Russian. I'm like right in between. There are things that I don't like about both cultures. There's things that I like. I like the depth of the Russian culture, and I hate the superficiality of it as well when it comes to the very extreme, girls that, anyways, I'm not going to get into that. I love the politeness of the Canadian culture, and I hate some passive aggressiveness that also exists in that culture, where people don't say what they think a lot. And I like the directness of the Russian culture, but it could also border on rudeness. So I was always kind of like at the crossroads of those two. And because I moved to Canada with us like still developing. I think it started with my first experience in relationships was with a foreigner. And so maybe that kind of started to shape, like I started thinking about it more. Oh, this is very different.
This must have affected your worldview a lot.
Yes.
Growing up in Russia and then moving to Canada early on and seeing that contrast.
Yeah, I think so. Like I don't know at which point my love of culture started, but I think it's usually with people that have either traveled a lot or that have moved around a lot, because then you really start to question your identity. Like if I would have kept living in Russia, I probably wouldn't question my identity that much, you know?
Maybe you wouldn't have started this channel. Who knows? What do you think?
100% would have started. I don't think I would have started this channel if I didn't have my first experience with a foreigner. And this is when I started thinking, I met this guy who was a German, and I never even know what the hell is Germany. Like, I didn't know anything about it. And so I became really interested, and I became a little bit, let's say, obsessed with Germany. And
the guy that wanted to split the bill?
No, it was a different guy. It was a different guy.
But also German.
Also German. Yeah. And I knew nothing about Germany, and so I became really, really interested in that. And I think a part of me has always wanted to recreate, foreigner. Okay, I didn't like anybody in Canada, but he was a foreigner and I liked him. Thus, I like foreigners. And it's like whatever you focus on, that expands, right? So that's kind of like broad, I guess, that started kind of happening. And then like at some point down the road there, then I started thinking, okay, I'm really, really interested in this. The more I was dating, the more I was asking the question, like, how is this done in your country? And I kept on noticing these little like idiosyncrasies. I can't speak
Idiosyncrasies.
It is, thank you. With how people behaved around the world, which I didn't realize this before. So it was like a combination of everything, I think.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the backstory.
Yeah, and it's now, when you say you're like an expert on cultural differences, I think, I could have told you like, oh no, I'm not, like I would have been humble before, but I kind of what I think, the way I see it, I feel like everybody kind of sees culture the way that I do, but actually no, because I think it's just, I'm so obsessed with it that here in Valencia, like I'll hear somebody speak and I'm like, they're Dutch. I'll hear, okay, they're Austrian. Like and I can tell by the way they're walking, by the way they're acting.
And you have trained a lot during the last few years, right?
Exactly.
So you must, I would say you're really an expert.
It's like if you play the violin all the time, right? You okay, I understand, So it's the same,
for sure. It's super interesting.
Yeah.
And I heard you speak Spanish earlier, and I was really impressed. Your Spanish is amazing.
Thank you.
Do you speak many languages as well?
So Spanish is great because I can do interviews in Spanish here because not a lot of people speak English. So that's been a really big plus. Obviously, I speak Russian. I was learning Portuguese for almost 2 years. So, okay, it's not great. I was learning it. I was going to say something, but I thought against it. And then I was learning Italian and French also. So like more in the Romance languages. No Swedish.
No Swedish?
Yes.
Pratar inte svenska?
Nej.
Nej. Okay. Yeah, that's a topic in itself, Sweden and Scandinavia.
Yeah.
We kind of have some kind of thing going on there. I'm Swedish, and you know a lot about Sweden. You wrote a whole book about Swedish culture and Swedish dating.
Scandinavian, but yeah, Sweden being one of them. Yeah, people ask
Sex
me.
Before Coffee?
Yes.
I've actually read the book. Not the whole book, but almost the whole book.
At least you're honest. Thank you for the honesty. People always ask me, like...
It's very spot on, I must say.
You.
As a Swede, you really nailed it, I think. So for anyone that hasn't read the book, get the book. It's amazing.
I'm just listening now there.
Yeah.
Did they turn on the music?
I think they did.
Goddamn.
Cure. Shit, this is what I grew up with back in Sweden. All my friends loved the Cure.
Oh, really?
The British pop band. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I know the Cure. It's funny because people ask me, like, are you obsessed with Scandinavia? Do you want to live in Scandinavia? And
yeah, what's going on here? Like, what's going on? You have to tell us.
I don't know how it first started, but the more I was making videos about, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland as well, Nordics, and Iceland, actually, I kind of was like, wow, these countries they're almost like aliens to the rest of the world. Okay, let's face it, like very attractive people for the most part. Like you have this Viking, thing if you're into that. And but at the same time, like people are so confused. They'll say, oh yeah, they're reserved. And I'll say, yeah, but they're actually like, in many of these countries, like people are actually pretty sexually open. And they'll say, no, but they're so reserved. So people don't know much about it. And so I remember one of the reels that I did, it was something cheesy. I think it was, the whole thing with asking men, you'd be okay if the woman paid for you? And they'd be like, yeah, of course, yeah. And so that went really viral because, of course, this conversation about paying, which I'm really sick of these days, to be honest. But there was something about Scandinavia that I really found interesting. As I said, like you can go to a country.
What was the first video you did? Or like, how did you get into this Scandinavian topic? Initially, do you remember?
The first video that I did about Scandinavia, that's a great question. And I think it must have been Denmark. I went to Denmark, and actually that's how Sex Before Coffee was born, because I interviewed one of the girls and I said, well, how does the dating work? And they were all very open about their sex life. And she said it with a Danish accent. She's like, yeah, if you're horny, you go to a club and then you hook up with someone and, then maybe you go have sex. Or you go for coffee. And I said, so sex before coffee? I said, yeah, sex before coffee. So that's actually how the line was born. It was from an actual person.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
Someone just said before this, like, you should make t-shirts, sex before coffee.
Yeah,
and so I was
brilliant.
like, I'll make the book. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was really interesting. So I didn't realize, I think Denmark was the first country that I went to.
I think that quote is in the book, by the way. And I remember it now from the book.
Yeah, that's how I introduced it. I said it was because of the girl. And so like, it's the homogeneous nature of Scandinavians. It's so interesting because when I talk to them, I'm almost guaranteed, especially when it comes to a country like Sweden, to get more or less the same answers around questions. Whereas in some of a lot of the countries you go to, people still think very, very differently. But here you're encouraged to think alike in some ways.
Yeah.
So that I found really interesting because it was easy for me to research. I was like, oh, this person thinks like this, and
it's very conformed.
Very conformed, very it's just such a conformist society that makes it it makes it so wonderful for me because it's easier to research.
Right.
It's easier to say, okay, we can say that majority of the country thinks the same way, unless they're international like you, but you're still very much aware of how people think.
Yeah.
And also,
so the stereotypes are really. You can really applicable somehow to Scandinavia.
Yes, exactly. And also the way people see, exactly this. And also what made it interesting for me is how Scandinavia always comes up, they always come up on the same top 5 for the happiest countries, but actually people are very lonely a lot of times. And that's also kind of the interesting part is how people keep to themselves so much. And they kind of struggle within, but they don't. It's so discouraged to be vulnerable with other people. So there are many things, but dating-wise, I found it different. And to be honest, though, now I feel like when I wrote about Sex Before Coffee, I found it very, very different. Now I feel like we're all going the same way as a society. Like we're all going towards the way of Scandinavia, where it's like super, super equal. Everything is like very casual.
You mean globally?
Globally.
Yeah.
Globally, we're all going splitting the bill. Like it's basically the same in so many countries.
That's where it's heading.
That's where it's heading. Exactly.
More and more.
Exactly.
What do you think about that development?
Which one specifically?
The equality thing, splitting the bill.
I'm kind of torn, to be honest. On the one hand, I'm always battling with this Eastern European part of me and this, because I never wanted to date Eastern European men, and I've never been for men that were very Latino or I usually prefer a calmer kind of person, and I've mostly genuinely speaking, mostly dated the northern part of Europe. So I had to be look, I'm Eastern European, you cannot expect.
Did you even date a Scandinavian?
Briefly, briefly Swede, briefly, but
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
strange experience.
I can imagine. I have to tell more sometime.
I'll tell you after. But so I'm not dating these Persian men, I'm not dating Middle Eastern men, I'm not dating Mexicans. So you have to kind of get with the times. Like, you cannot expect that from them. But I've never been one to be like, you have to pay everything. It's not me, but still we're raised with that culture, you know? Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, well, that's a big topic, Sweden, Scandinavia. I haven't lived there for 7-8 years, so yeah.
So I feel a little bit of both, like yeah.
I feel very globalized these
Yeah,
days.
I know what
Very
you
much of an expat or digital nomad.
Yeah.
For someone like me or someone that want to start a YouTube channel, what's your biggest learning so far with your channel? What would you have done differently? What did you do well?
Like I said, so in steps, pick a niche, offer value. Of course, then we're getting into the engagement part, which is really important, right? Because on YouTube, it depends on what platform we're looking at, but engagement is, of course, it's equally important, but in different ways. Obviously, someone who's listening to a podcast is going to have a very different attention span. Nevertheless, you always need to start with the highlights. You know this. Highlights are super important for, let's say, when I have a podcast, because now I have a podcast on my YouTube and Spotify, I always include the very controversial, the high peak moments of the conversation first. So that's always first. With an Instagram post, you want to get to you have very little time to keep people engaged, because people are just, this is what people are doing. So it needs to be, you need to cut out all the fluff, like it needs to be trimmed down. I go through the video a few times and I trim it down as much as possible. For a YouTube video,
You mean the reels on Instagram?
the reels, exactly.
Keeping it very short and to the point.
Yeah, for Instagram, it needs, so this is in terms of engagement. The first thing is, of course, you're cutting down all the fluff. The worst thing is if I'm clicking on a YouTube video and I want some valuable information about XYZ and they're talking about their dog for, the first 5 minutes. So then
Straight to the point.
straight to the point. My podcast now, I start with a big question. Because we can always go back afterwards. Sometimes I'll start with their life story, but I try to make it so that I try to see the engagement on the videos, and I see, okay, which ones had higher engagement, which ones had lower, and then I try to see patterns. Okay, why did people stop watching that video, right? So it needs to start off strong. And no matter which platform it is, it needs to start off strong. It also needs to have very strong, honest opinions. Controversy does well, of course. Weak opinions don't do well. People are not that interested, so
rather like hate it or love it kind of thing.
Usually, I think it's also because of the algorithm, because it pushes you one way or the other. I wouldn't encourage people to keep doing that forever, because eventually people get really, really tired of that. But people do like honesty, and they like the no fluff approach. They want the honesty, the authenticity. They want it to feel like you're talking directly to them, and they want to feel like, okay, this is actually really, really useful. This is really, really relevant. Like, it cannot just be blah, 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 blah. Cut down everything that doesn't offer value and just keep the good parts.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, controversy definitely sells. People also want to be seen. With my content, I think it's quite easy, because people can say, oh, well, she talked about a Brazilian living in Germany. Like, the contrasts always do incredibly well. I'm also Brazilian in XYZ in Sweden and Norway, but I relate really well to what she said about Germany, because I'm also Brazilian and I feel really, really represented in this reel. Or, even if we look at, when I talked about the negativity, I had a video called "These are the worst places to make friends and these are the best places to make friends." And which video do you think did best?
These are the worst places.
Of course, because people always want to see negativity.
Yeah.
Like, they want to, that's why a lot of video titles do really well. This is the loneliest, this is the...
That's why the news and mass media always play on these negative themes.
Exactly, and then you go in and it's not even the thing. It's like, it didn't even happen. They completely twisted the words, because people click on that. Your natural reaction is curiosity. Anything that evokes curiosity in the thumbnail, people need to be curious. This is the loneliest country in the world. Well, which one is it? People want to click on that. If I said Sweden is the loneliest country in the world, it's less interesting, and then once they click on it, you need to hold them. So you need to say, you need to start off right away with a statement like, these countries always come off as the happiest countries, but in fact, if you look at it, there are many things that are wrong, and so yeah, there are a few elements, and I'm trying to think of what else would work really well.
Are you doing like mostly, what formats are you focused on these days? Short form or long form content?
Right now, short form, and it's only logistical because I'm in Spain right now, so I'm making one big video about Spain. But because I'm not traveling, it depends on what you do. If you're a traveler and you make videos everywhere you go, it's great to do both. But right now I'm taking a little bit of a personal break because it's just too much work keeping all the platforms all the time. And to be honest, my long, what I would like to do is actually double down on my podcast, because I think the podcast is the new thing, and also because it's easier to manage and it's more interesting for me because you can get deeper with it. You don't have to travel for it, or at least I don't get to travel. You get to travel for yours.
Yeah.
So that's my main focus now, is on the podcast. Mm-hmm. I think once you have your brand and you have your value and you have your what and your why, it doesn't matter which format you do. You can do one format on YouTube, you can then do a thing on podcast, you can, like I did, I wrote a book, I have guides on dating around the world. Within that same bubble, you can make so many different little things that work well together, and they still offer the same value, but in different, one is a book, one is a podcast, they still offer value.
Mm-hmm. Different mediums.
Exactly, different mediums.
But you create synergies between them somehow.
Exactly. And so usually what I'll do is I'll create a YouTube video and I'll put clips and I'll put that on Instagram and TikTok. That directs to my YouTube, and then people can go watch my YouTube. I do the same with my podcast. Clips on my social media, I direct people to my podcast. So I strongly suggest that people do YouTube and socials, because on socials, it's how do you make money on socials? Unless you work with brands, unless you sell something.
Right.
That's it.
So YouTube is kind of the core platform you would recommend, and then build around YouTube different other revenue streams, or how would you go about it, you think?
So it depends on what your end goal is. If you have a course that you're trying to sell, let's say I have a course for Americans trying to move abroad, you don't necessarily need to have a YouTube channel. You can have social media, and there you link to your course and people can go see it. That's an easier way to do it, But if you're trying to earn money specifically through content creation, YouTube is your best chance, because social media doesn't pay. It does not pay you. I know so many people that are wasting their time creating all these little clips, and then they go to the garbage. There's nothing you can do with them. They're shot vertically. If you didn't get a sponsor on that, you're essentially making 0.0 that month. If you had done a full YouTube video, you could have potentially, depending on the format, you could have cut down the clips and posted it on Instagram, still making money on YouTube.
Repurpose this. Hola.
Repurpose, exactly. Perdona.
All right, so we're switching to walk and talk.
Because we got kicked out. You asked me about YouTube.
Exactly. Let's pick up where we left off.
With the professional. So, okay, here's my thing. I think people need to kind of sit down and think, okay, what is it that I want to be doing? Because YouTube is a lot of work. I'm sure you know this now, how much work it is. Are you going to be posting every week? Are you going to be posting every month? How short, how long are your videos? So it's a lot more work, but at the same time, at least there's a possibility of getting ad revenue, and you can get pretty good money monthly that you can live off of. Whereas right now, there's this kind of craziness around social media. Oh, everybody's on social media. People get on social media without even understanding why they're on social media.
Right.
They think that by some magic stroke of luck, they're going to become famous and they're going to be rich.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to be. I can tell you that I have quite a lot of followers on Instagram and TikTok. I think almost 400,000 on both. And unless you have sponsors, then essentially you're making 0.0, or you're selling products. So if you have a product, you want to sell it, I would suggest social media. That's an easier way to promote it. But if you really want to be a content creator, then I would go the other route.
YouTube, long form.
Long form, yeah. Even though, to be really honest, it does take so much work, and I've been posting religiously every week for many, 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 many years, afraid to miss a week. It has ruined so many of my vacations.
Yeah.
It has ruined so much of my life, just being upset that I'm not posting that week on that Thursday, you know, missing a day. And that now, because I've been doing it for so long, I allow myself to take more breaks.
Right.
Do you want to?
So you've been posting once a week for years.
More or less, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's
That's how
absolutely-
obsessed you have to be, basically, to make it.
Yes.
Would you say?
Yes, and now
Or
I've.
Is there any way around that, or that's just you have to like double down and post once a week, basically?
You know what I think? I think consistency is obviously really, really good, but I've seen videos perform really well even without consistency. If it's a really good subject, you can take some time off and come back and post again. But of course, the algorithm likes predictability. It basically, you know, the more you're posting, the more people are looking at your stuff, the more your content is seen as valuable.
Yeah.
Because the main goal for the algorithm is to keep people watching. So if someone watches your video, you direct them to the other video, and then the other video, and then the other
Right.
video.
Yeah.
But
So
Yeah.
consistency, having a clear format, like a blueprint.
so yes and no for the format. So for the format, you can have different playlists. You can have one playlist that it could be a vlog style if that's what you want. You can have a playlist that is just about tips on, let's say you're in the travel sphere, or let's say you're focusing on digital nomad life, right? You can have one playlist that is you sitting down and offering advice.
Okay.
But you can have another one that is more of you traveling to different cities, you know, and actually walking around the places and showing different parts. The reason I wouldn't just do the vlog style, for one, is it's really hard to, people want advice as well, right? If someone, you have to think, okay, if I'm starting out as a digital nomad, what am I going to be looking for? And a lot of it is going to be advice on how to be a digital nomad.
Yeah.
So you can create really good titles with that. You know, you can create like something that people will actually click on. And then if they like who you are, they're going to follow for the rest of the stuff. So you can have a couple of different formats. That's okay, but you have to just separate them and you have to list them off and say, you know, in this one I'm giving advice, in this one I'm going to be walking around the city and testing out Wi-Fi, you know, in different locations and testing out co-working spots. And in this one, I'm going to be doing something else. So essentially, you have playlists in your YouTube, right? Your YouTube page, you can create different videos. Let's say today we're doing a walk and talk video. And then you can organize them into different playlists. Okay, so for example...
So users can find them easily and...
Exactly, exactly. Your theme can still be, let's say, digital nomad
The
life.
overarching theme.
Exactly. But you can offer different value based on your niche, right? So
Right.
the reason I say format is like, it's going to be like more or less what is your format, right? Because you don't want to be doing completely different
So
things.
basically serious, or what would you say? Like one could be, for example, how do you build a business serious?
Yes.
One could be like more of a how to become a digital nomad serious.
Exactly. One can be advice. One series can be advice on becoming, on changing, like becoming a digital nomad, starting from scratch. The other one can be exactly something that is still about digital nomadism, but is a slightly different topic, right? Best places to go if you want to be a digital nomad.
Yeah.
Cheapest places. You've seen all those videos. There are so many people doing that.
So then you could do like just like a series, basically. I don't know how many would you suggest? Like
It's ongoing. This is going to be your life from the time that you decide to do this.
you can mix like one episode is on how to become a digital nomad. The next one is about more on how to build a business. and
Yeah.
The third one is something else.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be like in a row that you make the same type. You can mix them up a lot, and then you can put them into playlists, and then people can find it that way, right?
You mentioned also that people like predictability and like a clear format, like the same questions over and over. For example, so my YouTube teacher, Max Chernam, he has like his very unique style where he asks these experts. It feels very familiar, his format at least. He has this like interview style that is very distinct somehow.
Exactly. So, okay, it depends. So, for example, if you're doing social media, I strongly suggest having a kind of format that you are doing in all your videos, right? For me, it's interviewing on the street. Sometimes asking the same questions and getting different responses. That works. People sign up for that. That's what they're getting. They're not getting random stuff, right? That's why people need to get clear on like what they're doing. But at the same time, if you have a YouTube channel, you obviously, realistically, you're not going to be doing every single video exactly the same format, right?
Yeah.
So unless you're, let's say, interviewing on the street, in which case most of your videos are going to be you interviewing on the street. So you can have different playlists with the different formats, but I still would encourage people to keep it down to a few. Don't do too many crazy things because people are going to be confused. People need predictability. That you cannot give them too many things. Okay, I sign up for advice. Now this guy's cooking lasagna. It just has to, it has to be more or less the same thing.
Yeah, somehow a thread.
Exactly, exactly.
But I guess that's what we talked about initially. When you're starting out, you often try many different things and you're trying to find your voice, so to say.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I was at a conference and one of the questions was, well, how often should I be doing what I like and how often should I be doing what others want me to do? And I think if you're just going to keep doing what others want you to do, you will quickly burn out.
Yeah.
So it needs to feel your own. I've also noticed it with the videos that I've done where I felt like I should cover this subject because I think it will do well. Okay, for example, I went to Germany, I went to Cologne. Because, okay, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I wanted to monetize on the whole sexually liberated places around the world, even though I thought, honestly, who cares, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't really interesting. And I went all the way to Cologne to film this video about, this is the most sexually liberated city in the world. Thinking if I say, oh, sexually liberated city, people are going to watch it. But it completely completely flopped because nobody cared, you know. People watch my stuff because they want to understand the cultural differences. They want to be surprised. They want to learn something new. They want to say, wow, I didn't know that Swedes do this and this, you know, I didn't know Brazilians are like this. And it has to be different than what everyone else is doing on the theme of cultures because there's so much information now about.
But when you're starting out, would you recommend someone to double down on one format, basically, just to get the familiarity? Or
yes and no.
Sorry if I asked that again.
It's a good question. And I don't know that I have the 100% answer for you. Yes and no, but I think the problem is that people can get pigeonholed very fast in one thing. And then as soon as they try to move away from that, they're like, no, do this thing. We don't care about the rest. And this happens to a lot of creators.
Or just like go where the data is and see what the audience likes, basically, and do some, after a few, you know, see where the spikes are. And
yeah, I think if you did a video and it's doing really well and it's also a topic you're interested in, then yes, by all means you can of course doubling down makes sense because you see something that works. And it's not something, you know, and you know that it's going to be people like this topic, and you know that now they understand that this is your format.
Yeah.
I think you should kind of work on that because it's really hard to find. It's really hard to find something like the recipe that does very well. So if it's working, of course you should focus. Not all the time. You can still play around and see if there's anything else, but yeah, you should prioritize that for sure.
Do you think it's good to be a YouTuber in Valencia? Or why did you come here, by the way? Like,
it's a good question because I didn't know where else to go.
Oh, really?
I struggle with what I think a lot of people struggle with when they work remotely, and that is number one, being super isolated from the world because, you know, when I'm in Canada, all I do is work. I don't think I have much of a social life at all.
Same for me when I'm in Sweden.
Right? And
Yeah, it
it's not
sucks.
great. I mean, it's wonderful because I get so much work done.
Sure.
But when I close my laptop, I don't know what else to do with myself. It's almost like I'm working because I have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I thought, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And I really loved the way I felt in Lisbon because in Lisbon, I felt like I had kind of a social life. But I wanted to be in the south of Europe. So I just thought I'm going to go to Valencia because I was here years ago and I really loved it. And at least I know here I'm going to have a social life. And the wonderful thing is now I have a really great social life here.
Oh, cool.
In a matter of a month, I made a bunch of friends. But
Nice.
the really negative thing is that it's really hard to work here. Very hard to concentrate. So I'm very...
Because there's too much going on?
Too much. There's too much going on.
Events and stuff? Or
Yes.
what do you do? Like,
I mean, I do everything. I do yoga. We go hiking on the weekends.
nice.
There are friends organizing tapas and drinks nights. So it's really wonderful. And of course, people are kind of in the same mental space here that they want to go out and mingle. A lot of people are not here very, very long. And people work for themselves, like in Lisbon. So
Is it
you
a
get,
transient city just like Lisbon?
I
or-
think it's even more transient than Lisbon, to be honest.
What kind of crowd is hanging out here? Like, what people are you interacting with?
So I don't know many people that are living here full time. Obviously, I'm not friends with Spanish people, so that's why. But if they do come, they come for a few months and they leave, then they come again for a few months. So I think it's even worse in Lisbon because in Lisbon, people stay longer. It's not a very entrepreneurial crowd here. There's way less digital nomads that there are in Lisbon.
All right.
So that's the one thing that I really don't like is the transience
Right.
of the city. Unless, of course, you're hanging out with Spanish people. Yeah.
So what do people do mostly, the people you meet? What do they work with? The digital nomads?
My friend is an editor. Another friend is, my God, I'm also staying in a co-living actually, where
yeah.
it's everybody's a remote worker.
So you met a lot of people from the co-living?
Yeah, but everybody's working for a company. It turns out that I'm one of the only people that
He's an entrepreneur.
is like fully remote working for myself, So people work American hours or, they work for their companies.
Right.
So, but for like something like filming, this is a great place because you get people from all over the world here. And
Yeah, it must be great for your channel.
really great.
Seems like you interview mostly tourists.
Mostly tourists, some Spanish people. There are a lot of people from all over the world here, so it's very easy. But yeah, it's this like lifelong question. It's like, where is home,
Yeah.
Some people, like, we don't have this feeling of home. And I'm so jealous of people that have this feeling of, I know exactly where I belong.
Are you a digital nomad at the moment? You don't have a steady base somewhere?
I suppose I am, yeah. I don't like to say that because it's almost like, oh, I'm a digital nomad, like that's super cool. But my goal isn't to be a digital nomad. My goal is to have a place. But I've come to the realization that maybe, I don't know if I'm ever gonna have like that place that feels like home.
Right.
Because I feel like, I told you, I think it's important, like you have some roots somewhere, you make some roots. Because we're not moving for jobs. We're not moving for a partner, right? So then,
No, we have to decide ourselves, people
it's
in our
hard.
situation, I guess.
I think it's hard to decide yourself
What
sometimes.
would be your ideal country to live in at this point?
You've asked me $1 million question, Jonathan. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I love Spain, but I don't think Spanish mentality is exactly for me. I don't think I feel this feeling of home, even though I really, really love the city. I really felt at home when I was in Lisbon, to be honest. I don't know why, but
So
whenever...
come back. We miss you in Lisbon.
Yeah, maybe Lisbon is calling me back.
Yeah.
I really felt that. Like when I would be like landing in Lisbon, I would feel like, oh, I'm home,
I think it's a really good city, and as I told you off camera, I think the city is developing fantastically. And it's just getting better and better.
Yeah.
The Run Club is fantastic.
Really?
And whatever, all the co-working spaces, and I don't know, it's a good city for entrepreneurs, I think, and yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I should come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's this conversation of like, where do you feel at your best and where do you feel at your worst in the world? And Canada's really great for working, but it's not great for the other parts of life.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I'm my best. And I think it's really hard to create something when you're not at your best somewhere.
100%. It's important where you are.
It's important where you are, yeah. Because if you're not shining, if you're not feeling like good energy, then you're just negative and complaining, and then bad things happen, and more bad things happen, So, yeah.
But so you've been all over the world, it seems like. Are you? Yeah, you have been. How many countries have you been to?
I'm not sure, but I definitely haven't been all over the world. I've definitely haven't been to a lot of the countries around the world. I think I would say that, and I think like my videos reflect that, but I focus mostly on Europe and Latin America in my videos, which I would love to do more of Asia and other parts of the world. But I'm also getting to the point where I don't want to be traveling for content. I just don't want to do this.
Right.
And I either, hire people, and I've done that in other countries, to create the videos for me. So they shoot the interviews, and then I put that together, and I also add some statistics and this and this and this. So it's not just interviews.
So what countries have you lived in? And how do you come up with where you want to go? Is it data driven, or is it just like, now I want to go to Spain, so this,
Yeah, I could lie to you and tell you that I travel mostly for content, but right now I'm literally just here for myself. I have traveled for content before, but it's incredibly expensive because you're constantly like switching Airbnbs, and you're stressed out the entire time. You're staying in these little places it's too complicated. I have lived in, well, obviously Portugal, where we met. I've lived in Mexico. I have lived in Argentina for a bit and in Panama for a bit, but not crazy long or anything like that. I have to say, like, Portugal actually was my longest stint, and I've been here for a month and a half so far. So I don't know if I would consider that living here.
And prior to Spain, where were you?
I was in Canada.
Canada. Okay.
But also
Do you have
in
like
Mexico.
a place there?
Right now I don't, which is something that I would have to kind of figure out if I'm going to rent a place or, yeah. I've really struggled to commit to Canada, because it's almost for me like if I'm committing to Canada, then I'm kind of getting rid of all my dreams to live abroad, but I also don't have the place that I definitely want to live abroad.
Right.
So it's like a catch-22, It's a first world problem, but I feel it.
No, I think you should come back to Lisbon and hang out. We can do content.
This whole video is a ploy to get me to come back to Lisbon.
I have a few finishing questions, I think. More on the strategic side, the future plans, etc. What are your revenue streams?
So this is something that has been a bit of a pain point for me, because when I got into this, I was again thinking short term, and I relied heavily on sponsorships. Obviously I get AdSense, which I get paid monthly, but also sponsorships. I used to get very, very good money for videos. And so, you make
Product
a video.
placements and
Yeah, exactly. Like
advertisements.
Exactly. It was like a 40-second to 60-second mention of a company. I remember I went to Cuba. We did 2 videos there. And I went back, and there was this company I work with, and I said, I did 2 videos. They said, okay, could you put in a 40-second mention of us, and we'll give you 10 grand. So
Wow.
it was pretty nice.
When did this start? When could you approach sponsorships, or when did the brands approach you, or vice versa?
So I'm trying to think of when it started happening, but essentially it's when I started doing these, your dating videos.
So what was your average view per video like? Do you remember?
I was definitely getting around 50,000 plus views per video at this point. I had quite a lot of videos that have reached, 100,000. My biggest one was 8 million, but
Wow.
that was like the very, very top. I think it's still the top video on my channel.
Did they start reaching out to you, or did you reach out to them?
I think a lot of them did reach out to me. There are companies reaching out to me to work with me. Having said that, I have reached out to sponsors before, and I strongly recommend doing that because there are a lot of brands out there.
At what point, how many average views would you say?
I would say do it as soon as possible.
Really?
Yeah, because not everybody is looking for a huge channel, right? I mean, you can still be earning some money even if you have a very small channel. I know a lot of brands that work with micro-influencers. In fact, they prefer to work with many micro-influencers than me, who's like a macro-influencer, because micro-influencers is someone who has kind of a small following.
So even I could start reaching out, you think?
Yes.
At this point?
Yes. Yeah, you can approach Rode Mics and say, which is what I did, and say, hey, maybe they won't pay you, but they'll give you the free microphones,
Right.
which is, they do this because you say, I'm going to be using them in the video anyways.
Yeah.
Could you, give it to me for free? You could, let's say you're already talking about a product, or you already are using a product.
Yeah.
Let's say you love this, stick.
Yeah.
And you say, I'm already using this. It would be a really authentic integration.
Sure.
They would happily, potentially, you can approach these companies first. The ones that strongly align with your brand, obviously. And
Yeah.
I'd say like a lot of people that get brand sponsorships are very small channels. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Can you say approximately how much you make yearly?
To be honest, it's really, really hard for me to. This guy looked at me like he knew my channel. Sometimes people look at me very weirdly, and I don't know.
Yeah, no, he was really staring.
He was like, she's someone famous. So it's really hard for me to say because some months it's very small, and some months I get a lot of money, and it would range like for a month, $2,000 to $10,000, something like this. So it could be very, very low. It could be very, very high.
Okay.
But this really depends on
Why the fluctuations? Is it sponsorships?
mostly, and it's also right now I'm not posting anything on YouTube. So when you don't post on YouTube, your revenue kind of gets smaller.
Right.
So it could be very, very bad.
Yeah. So it's you have to be very active.
Yes.
On YouTube. That's the thing.
Exactly that. Like you have to be. Exactly. If you want to rely on AdSense, you have to be fairly active on YouTube.
Yeah. And your other income streams are like you have a book,
Yes, a book,
podcast.
podcast. Yeah, but
social media
podcasts,
channels.
I would still count that as YouTube because
Yeah.
I haven't monetized the Spotify yet. But that's my next goal, is to monetize the Spotify and also get a sponsor to pay the entire, like every single episode, like get a consistent sponsor for my podcast.
Cool.
So that's my next big goal that I'm working on. Right now, I would say yes, sponsorships are a really big one. Some people say affiliate links. I don't like affiliate links. I don't see much of a value from them, but it depends on people. I also have guides on dating around the world that I sell pretty passively. They're there. I mention them in the videos.
Right.
People buy them. So
What's your best marketing funnels? Like.
to be honest, that's something I'm really working on hard right now because when it comes to sponsorships, it's really wonderful because you can get really great money with them, but it's really inconsistent in terms of how much they offer, in terms of, so I would say you need to be selling some sort of digital product, but for me, it's been really difficult because of my topic. So yeah, I can write a book about dating in Scandinavia, people get the value out of it, right? But if I'm gonna create a course on dating in Scandinavia, that would be weird.
Yeah.
I cannot do that because it's not a course people buy.
Did you make a lot of money on the book? Or?
Yeah, it's like money I get monthly, but I don't think I'm charging enough for it. So that's something I need to take a look at as well, because right now it's like $5. I'm charging more for my guides than I'm charging for my book, which doesn't make much sense. So it's something I need to kind of go back and change.
Right. What is your biggest income source?
I think right now, to be honest, it is sponsorships.
Sponsorships.
Which is not ideal, I have to be very honest. I would like to have it be something else because like I said, it's not something you can control.
Right.
Right? So my right now, the one that I'm working on right now is more digital products.
It's not a retainer kind of thing. It's like always you have to learn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes, unless it's an affiliate.
Case
yeah.
by case.
Exactly. Affiliate, you constantly get money from it. Just you have a link and that's it.
Right.
But I prefer money up front. Maybe I just prefer it that way.
Sure.
Digital products are a good one as well. So that's something I'm creating, like many guides on kind of cultural, meeting people around the world and dating people around the world. And those ones are good because I'm adding more and more, and they're very easy to market. But you cannot really charge a lot for them.
Right.
You can be like, oh yeah, $100. Of course, no one's going to pay that, right? So you have to be very reasonable. Oh, there's a TikTok group.
Talking about content creation.
Talking about, yeah.
If you're going to outsource something, what would be the most important aspect be?
So right now, editing podcast.
Editing
I
your
don't
podcast.
have the time to edit my podcast. I don't want to edit it. Also, I have somebody who cleans up sound, and he can do it way better than I can. He lives in Venezuela, so
Video editing as well, maybe?
yeah. Oh yeah, he does video and audio editing. But if I were now to outsource, 100%, I had an editor this entire time that I had my channel, and he did video editing. So video editing, I really genuinely love editing my socials, and it's maybe because a bit of the type A personality where I don't want to give it to anyone else because I don't think they would pick the parts that I would pick. So that's really hard.
Yeah.
In general, with my content, it's really hard to outsource the interviews because whoever is editing it needs to understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
You cannot just be like, oh, cut all the fluff.
Yeah.
No, you know?
But you have a video editor, or?
Right now, I only have the podcast editor, which is the video editor
you're
as well.
editing a lot of things yourself as well?
Which is not ideal. So this is, I wouldn't suggest this ever. I've had an editor most of pretty much 7 years at least that I've been doing this.
Yeah.
And only now I've gone back to, and it's mostly because obviously the financial point, but also because I found that I had to tell my editor exactly what I wanted to keep in the video.
Yeah.
And that's not, it doesn't make sense, you know, to tell someone, no, this is what I want to have. I might as well edit it myself.
Yeah, the creative control aspect.
Exactly. You need to have someone really good who really understands what you're going with. Exactly.
What you're doing, yeah. What
Uh,
about, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Hopefully very rich. No, I see myself, honestly, in terms of the channel, I really would love to stop doing YouTube and just focus on podcasts and also speaking on stage. That's something I would really like to do. I'm also writing another book right now called Why Cultural Differences May Break Your Relationship. So I would like to step away from YouTube, to be very honest. Because, where are we in this park? I feel like do you want to go back? Because I feel like, should we go that way?
Let's go that way. What's the podcast about? And what's the format? Are you sitting down in a studio, or is it not video, or what?
So by the way, anybody who's starting a podcast, I strongly, 100% suggest do video. But please, by God, do not make it a Zoom call. Don't have two screens next to each other. No one, that just kills it.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do
boring.
horrible.
So in person, you mean? That's the thing.
So I'm not able to do mine in person. So what I get people to do is, if we're creating this podcast, I'm very specific about, I want you to also record yourself on the phone, and then or record yourself through the phone. You have to have good ear microphones and everything, because it needs to look visually good. That's part of the selling, you know, because I cannot do it in person. Because everybody I'm interviewing is in different countries.
Sure.
That's kind of, I'm interviewing a lot of big content creators and experts, but they're all international. So it's complicated, you know. You came all the way to Valencia to interview me. Imagine doing this on a full-time basis. You probably would get tired.
Sure.
You know, so, and also you need a lot of funds to make that happen, to keep traveling like that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely.
So my format is pretty easy. Like I said, I do one-on-one, and I talk about cultural differences and dating and stuff. But yeah, good video is 100% very, very important, because then you can also upload it on YouTube, and then you can monetize your YouTube, and you know, you can already make a living on that before even Spotify.
But it's not a Zoom call, or is
No.
it?
I have a program. I use StreamYard. People use Riverside. Yeah,
Okay.
both are very good.
Riverside, Streamyard, okay.
And also I
heard
get
of
them to record themselves on their camera on their phone, so that the quality is really nice, that it looks really good.
Okay, they use the camera on the phone when they record.
I get them
better.
to do it. I'm very strict on this because I want people to be able to
Not
watch
any
it.
webcam or
No.
shit like that.
No, definitely not. No, I don't
yeah.
allow this, so
Makes sense.
I'm pretty strict on that.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
Okay, so this is kind of the future.
So
Alright.
yeah, future podcast, speaking on stage, and maybe something else. I'm not really too sure. When it comes to the YouTube channel, I don't know, but I feel like at a certain point people do burn out with YouTube.
Yeah.
It's not something you want to be
It's a
doing.
shit ton of work.
So much work.
Can you sell a YouTube business? Or how does that work?
I've been offered to sell it,
Okay.
but first of all, I just feel kind of weird about it at this point. Second of all, it needs to be a lot of money for me to say yes, because it's my baby, you know, you don't want to sell
of
your
course.
baby. You've been working so hard at it.
Yeah.
And also, I don't really see if there's a reason for them, because what are they going to do with it? You know, are they going to have someone else host it, or what's going to happen?
True.
So,
No, it's tricky if you're really the face of the business, but
that's kind of the thing with when people choose, should they put their face on something or not?
yeah,
I always say yes, because
makes it more relatable.
makes it more relatable. You're not going to be able to do sponsorships unless your face is on it. It's very difficult.
Exactly.
So you're losing a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, you know, then people have kind of like their thoughts on you, and they can comment on you, and they can call you names, and you're dealing with that as well, which I haven't had a lot of, because I don't position myself as someone that goes on dates. So thank God no one's like, oh, look at her, she's going on. No, I talk to people, that's it. I do research. I never talk about my own personal life, which I'm sure if I have, I'd get way more views as well. But I'm not selling my soul to the devil.
Sure.
Yeah,
Keep it real.
exactly. Keep it.
I think you provided a lot of value here today.
Thank you. I just realized I was looking down the entire time we were talking. I was like,
Oh,
I shouldn't
okay.
look into the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're very focused on what you're saying here. No, we appreciate the time, Marina.
Thank you. Thank you for coming all the way to Valencia to do this interview with me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'm sure my audience will get a lot out of this as well.
I hope so. I hope so. And if anyone has any questions that they want to ask me, you can just write them down below, and I'll go and I'll answer them.
Highly appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's been super awesome to talk to you here in Valencia.
Yeah, you too. And I think, like, if I could give one final advice for anyone that wants to start a channel, don't overthink it. Really don't overthink it, because, you know, if you want to do something, don't wait until the conditions are just right. I think that kind of is like an advice for everything in life, because it's never right. The more you wait, the more stuff comes up. Just start, and then you can always pivot. You can always change it a little bit. No one starts off knowing 100% what they're going to be doing in 5 years. And even if you know, it might change. Like, what I found interesting was, dating around the world is not that interesting anymore, because I don't find the dating itself so interesting anymore. I find the connection part of it more interesting. I find people interesting. I find the sociological aspect interesting. But, like, who should call someone, by which dates they should have sex, it just matters way less to me, you know, at this point.
So you pivoted many times, basically.
I've what?
You pivoted many times with your channel?
Yes, because, you know, you change so much as a person. Like, first of all, you get older as well. And then everything that you found exciting changes. Your priorities change so much, and your channel can change with you as well.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like right now, I'm more excited about deeper conversations about human nature than I am about, you know, who should call who or who should pay for who. It's just not that important anymore.
No, you have to be authentic and true to your kind of what interests you, I guess, as well.
Exactly. Although on social media, you still have to keep it a little bit stupid sometimes, and a little bit like easily digestible for the people.
Sure.
Because that's, unfortunately, that's what sells. Exactly. Yeah. So thank you, Jonathan, for a great interview. I feel like I had a little bit of a therapy session today.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's been awesome and very cool to talk to you, actually. I felt like we got a lot out of it.
Yes.
Felt like we talked about a lot of things.
Yes, I agree. I'm sure it's going to be a podcast that's going to be almost 2 hours at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Probably the longest one I've done so far.
Interesting.
Let's see how we edit this one. Is there anything else we should talk about? If you could only live in 3 countries for the rest of your life, what would those countries be?
Ooh. I think you had a question about the dating. Who would you date? Which cultures would you date?
Oh yeah, that's
even
one.
So for the countries that I would live in, Southern Europe, I like Mexico as well, but it has to be South. I'm not attracted by countries that other people would find attractive. Like, people go to Iceland and they say, oh, I love Iceland, I could live here. And I just don't feel the same way. Like, I need palm trees and...
If you have to decide on 3 countries.
3 countries, okay.
Yeah, you can only say 3.
Okay, Spain.
Yeah.
Portugal. And the third one would be, well, let's just say Greece, just to keep it Southern Europe.
Southern Europe, all
Southern
over.
European, exactly.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
cool choices.
Thank you.
And yeah, no, okay, let's do that one too then. Any cultural preference when it comes to dating, personally?
You know what? It's a question I get a lot, and people ask like, "What's the best country to date?" And I mean, if we're talking about people like really, really generally, which is what I do on my channel, I've come to realize that I wish I could borrow certain qualities from different countries.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's like, you know, for example, if we look at Swedes, I really like that Swedish men. They're very, you know, they're like equal in very good ways, that, you know, they still want to help out, and they still, they're not like expecting you to do certain things because you're a woman. So that's a nice part. Also the casualness. I think the people are like, they'll go out on a date, but it's very casual. They're not going to be like going to a restaurant and doing something really, really pressuring, like very like theatrical. So there's less preference for theater, which is really nice. What's nice about, let's say, the French culture is the love for debates and discussions. They can be very critical, but I like that the depth in the culture. And then what I like about, I don't know, Balkans is that if something is broken, they'll be like, I'll fix it, I'll take care of it. So you feel like someone is very,
like a handyman.
yeah, like they can take care of things. You feel really protected. And also,
that would be an amazing mix of a guy, it sounds
yes,
like. A mix of a Swede, a French, and a Balkan guy.
Exactly.
What a fantastic guy.
Yeah, or like Brazilians that are very tactile, they're very warm.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You know, so you have
there
like
you have it.
a well-rounded.
The ultimate dude. Okay, take notes, everybody. Here we have the prototype, I think. All right, cool. Yeah, from the horse's mouth, basically, right? You should know. From the horse mouth.
Well, I wish I knew less. The less you know, the better you sleep.
Yeah,
I think the more research you do, the harder it is to, I don't know, it's like, you know, I came to Spain and some of the people saying, oh, why don't you date in Spain? And I said, because I did so much research on the Spanish dating culture that it's completely turned me off. And I'm sure I'm missing on some really wonderful people, but overall, the more you know about a culture, the more sometimes you can say, oh, this is not for me, because of the way they approach commitment, the way they approach relationships. I just don't find that it aligns with me. But I'm a strong believer that you can also meet someone who's completely different, international, and this person changes your perception of the culture, right?
Yeah.
So
hard to stay. I guess that's the thing, like to stay open-minded as you grow older and more knowledgeable.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act.
I agree. You should let people surprise you sometimes, because we all hate parts of our own culture, and we don't feel like we belong to our culture. And someone said to me, you know, Marina, if they knew you're Russian, many people would not want to date you, because they would assume that you come with certain expectations and you're a certain way, but you're not like that. So
it goes both ways.
So yeah, and that kind of like opened my mind, and I thought, yeah, that's actually really true. That would feel,
Fantastic conversation, Marina.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Really appreciate it.
Okay.
And yeah, we've been talking for quite a bit here. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And if anybody wants to go check me out, it's Dating Beyond Borders on every platform imaginable, except for Twitter. Or
BBB for short.
Exactly.
Very cool. Please check her out. Amazing person and channel.
Thank you.
So.
Bye, guys.
Ciao for this
Ciao.
time.